The Black Ship Side Story, What's the Job? Chapter 4. Making his rounds through several tasks, not the least of which was setting up a series of monitoring devices around the lodge, since he was unsuccessful in bugging the Taigan's bedrooms. While he was finishing the painstaking effort to get everything set up without being detected, he received an alert from one of his devices monitoring the Staples home. The agent immediately stopped everything he was doing and pulled out his tablet so he could watch the live feed. A frown instantly furrowed his brow, and his eyes went wide, however, when he saw nothing but static. He quickly tapped on another device and saw nothing out of the ordinary. In fact, he even saw Wirt chopping wood, or at least that was his initial assumption. The aggressiveness with which he smashed the logs into firewood made him think something might be bothering the father of three. Going back to the failed device, he rewound it till it showed the last few seconds it was still active. But the only information it revealed was that it was working fine till it was suddenly jostled around for a couple of seconds. Then the feed was dead. A second review of the different devices revealed no further information. All were still working perfectly fine and showed no activity beyond the young lord's family. With nothing further to go on, he decided to cut things a little short and head back to the Staples home area and see if he could find anything more about his missing device. The man took his time, working his way through the woods as he approached his device's last known location. He'd periodically peer through the scope of his rifle to spy out anything suspicious, but all he found were the occasional furry animals and large insects scurrying about the trees and bushes. Making sure he remained out of sight, the agent belly-crawled the last bit of distance to the tree that held his device. It didn't take long for him to find it cast aside at the base of the tree. He looked over the device and found it in a mangled state. Indeed, it almost looked as though it had been chewed on. As he continued, sounds of sporadic squeaking noises in the surrounding woods reached his ears, and he let out a tired sigh. Really? All this effort because some squirrel or tree rat thought this was a treat? He grumbled before producing a new monitoring device. This time, he carefully sprayed it with a light coating of a synthetic pepper spray, a trick of his own, though this was the first time applying it to cameras. "Now chew on this, you little bastards, I dare you!" he growled as he reached up and put it where the other one had been. Putting up his bag of tricks, the hairs on the back of his neck stood. Dropping back down to the ground, he again scanned the area. His enhanced reality sensor didn't pick up anything out of the ordinary, but something felt off. His eyes narrowed and his muscles tensed, ready to fight. He waited for 2 minutes, but nothing happened as the sensation eventually diminished. It irked him greatly that he couldn't deduce what was wrong. What he didn't fully realize was that, a couple of 100 yards away, under a blanket covered in leaves, moss, and anything else found naturally on the forest floors, was someone watching him through their own scope. "Now who the hell are you? And what are you up to?" A quiet voice spoke to himself, unmoving and secured under his stealth blanket. Only when he saw the agent pulling out a special scope he recognized did he stop watching and cover even his own scope to hide. With the device back in place and monitoring this angle, the agent gave another long look around to see if he could find what was suddenly making him feel uneasy. Not finding any success after several minutes of scanning the area nearby, he huffed and quietly made his way out of the area so he could get back to his previously self-made list of chores. While doing so, he got a ping for House Arante of a black T-shaped ship of unknown design arriving in the starport. Finally, something useful from those people. Volantis main starport. A deep breath escaped through Nico's nose as they touched down on his target's home planet of Volantis. "All right, we're here. Ada, we don't need it, but go ahead and purchase fuel, parts, and/or whatever materials our fabricators might need for parts we can't purchase. Throw it into storage if need be. We'll need it eventually, and it lets us get on the locals' good side." He then pinged his ship's AI, Amara, to which she immediately appeared ready and rearing to go. "Yes, Captain. What mayhem am I going to get into today?" she asked while flashing a bright smile. Nico grinned. "I want you to infiltrate the local networks. Find what you can on the Taigans that are staying here and search the public records for anything on the Staples family. Postal services, school and medical records, etc. Everything and anything. And the rest of you," he continued, swiveling in his chair to look at his crew. "Inspect all your gear. Myra, inspect the vehicles we got as well. I want to make sure we have any and all options ready and available at a moment's notice." A string of "I, captains" rang out, and Nico left to check his own gear as well. Later that evening, when all tasks had been carried out, Nico sat down to go over the intel that had been collected. A confused look appeared on his face as he turned his gaze to a rather embarrassed-looking Amara. "This is it?" Amara shrugged. "I'm sorry, Captain. There doesn't seem to be any information on the staples we're looking for in the public records. It's as if they don't exist here. Could it be that the planet name was a misdirection?" Nico's frown deepened as he looked over what information she was able to dig up. I doubt it. More likely their files were erased to keep them hidden, and if they aren't here, then the Tigans were just as fooled as we were. It was then that a detail caught his eye. "Oh, come on. This can't be right. 200 men with them?" Ridiculous. Only a fool would believe this was a hunting party. "That's not a party. It's an army on holiday," he jested alongside a quick laugh. That number was probably just doctored so they could rent out the entire lodge. Amara held up her hands in a don't-shoot-the-messenger sort of way. The video logs from the starport do seem to confirm a large attaché having joined the young Tigans. He raised a curious eyebrow to the AI and pondered what she said. "Then I suppose we'll have to go get more intel from that lodge in the morning. Let's see if we can at least assess how prepared those people are. Hopefully they are just as lost as we currently are. Meanwhile, I suppose we will proceed with the other plan. Did you order what I asked for?" "Of course!" "It will arrive first thing in the morning," she confirmed with a nod. "Excellent. Thank you," Nico said with a devilish grin as he continued making plans and preparations for the next day. Hidden on a small hill overlooking a famous hunting lodge, Nico and his team sat amongst the tall trees and rocky formations in the cool morning air. Peering through their scopes down at the large group of people below, it was Ada who was the first to speak up. "Nico," she chuckled. "I appreciate the vote of confidence in our abilities the client seems to have, but I'm thinking that 8 prissy noble Tigans and 200 guards might just be a little much for us, even if they are split up a bit. I thought the information we had said these people were here for a hunting expedition, no?" asked Kartok with a confused glance toward the captain. "Why bother with them at all?" Nico raised an eyebrow and looked at his blue friend curiously. "In the middle of a house war where their side has just lost a battle that shouldn't have happened in the first place and suffered a major propaganda blow, and you really believe the Tigans just happened to plan a hunting trip for funsies on the home planet of the new shining star that delivered that blow against their side?" Kartok's face scrunched up in embarrassment. "Well, I suppose not when you put it like that. But there's no need to be rude." He finished with a grin and a small, friendly nudge to the captain. "So what's the play?" Myra interjected. "There's no way we can go around searching for the staples while their lot is trying to do the same thing." "Thank you, Myra," Ada purred. "So how about it, Captain? Let's hear that great plan of yours." Nico sighed as he withdrew from the rocky outcrop and headed back to their transport. "First, we'll need to find a young member of House Errante." The trio he left behind looked at each other in a confused manner. "The local big shots? What does House Errante have to do with this?" inquired Kartok, as the three quickly followed behind. "Well, we could probably spend hours, if not days, going around town asking about the family and risk bumping into the Tigans or their entourage back there. Or worse, tipping the family off that strangers are looking for them. Or we could just go straight to the nobles that are probably keeping tabs on them anyway, and we can speed up this whole endeavor," Nico said, as though it was obvious. Myra sighed. "Very well, I'll be the one to ask," she said, knowing how her captain liked his little reveals. "Why would anyone from House Errante speak with us at all, much less give us this information?" Nico smiled. "Why, indeed, that is where Ada's unique talents will come into play," he teased. Kartok and Myra both looked over at their feline partner quizzically. "Why do I suddenly feel like I should want to go back to the ship and entrench myself there?" Ada quipped with a nervous playfulness. "And miss your performance debut in the Principality?" "I think not!" Nico fired back just as playfully. "This better not involve me dancing, Nico," she quickly shot back. Much to their chagrin, Nico said nothing more beyond a small laugh as they got into their transport and headed back to the capital of fire. Unbeknownst to them, a lone figure was silently watching from a more distant hill as they left the hunting lodge grounds. The man made a few notes before resuming his ever-watchful vigil. "Well, you have just become far more interesting. "What is your interest in the Tigans?" the agent said quietly to himself, as he prepared a quick report. Status report. The situation is deteriorating. I have detected multiple parties with probable or at least possible hostile intentions toward the Staples. House Tigan is currently confirmed to be the main suspect. However, no hard evidence has been found to support it thus far. Many other noble families have been detected attempting to interact with the assets, but most have been ruled out as harmless opportunists. The agent paused for a moment to organize his thoughts. Preventative measures have been put in place, but I suspect they will only conceal the Staples family for so long. I recommend exfilling the assets as soon as possible. At the very least, I request immediate additional support personnel to assist me with the surveillance and protection aspects of the mission, as I am uncertain whether local support can be relied upon. Until support is sent, I will confine my activities to the area around the Staples home in a continued, discreet manner. Status report over. Captain, I still don't understand what you're hoping to achieve, pressed Myra as they traveled back. Even if we manage to talk to someone from House Arante, and even if they do, for whatever reason, give us what we're looking for, that still means we'll have to get the Staples family out of here without House Tegan and House Arante noticing. Trust me, Myra. By the time we're done, neither will be a problem, the captain said confidently. Using the information provided by Uriel Holks, the team eventually found themselves in a seedy part of the capital city, Fire. The air was heavy with the smell of cigarette smoke, alcohol, and broken dreams, all masked behind the flashy neon lights and glittering decorations. Of all the locations, Uriel's information packet gave us regarding the family's most frequented establishments. Did you really have to choose this one? Myra asked with no small amount of disgust. Of course, Nico replied with a smirk. Where else are you going to find a young blue blood with more testosterone than brains with as small a contingent of guards as possible? Ada's shoulders slumped before she complained. I knew it! You're going to make me dance! She sighed deeply and raised her hands while looking heavenward. You have one of the best technicians currently across the Principality at your disposal, and you just want me to shake my tail for some random noble? Why, Nico? Why? She grumbled dramatically. What can I say, Ada? You're really good at it, Nico said with a playful bump into her shoulder. The feline woman growled at Nico, even if she was barely containing a tiny, mischievous grin. Besides, I only need you to lure our young noble in. Absolutely nothing else. Once we have him behind closed doors, we'll persuade him to give us the information we need, and then we'll be gone, the captain said, as though it was as simple as that. With that, the team soon disappeared into the Mountain Rose Gentlemen's Club. Nico approached the hostess and ordered a room for the festivities. Very good, sir, the woman behind the counter said in a sultry tone. And will you be requiring the services of some of our young ladies? Or will you be bringing your own talent? She asked, giving both Myra and especially Ada curious glances, a fact that drew uncomfortable glares back at her. I'll be providing my own talent, thank you. And I'll need the room for 7 days, Nico said casually. The woman nodded. Very well. Please sign the waivers and contract on the tablet there, then make your payment, mister. The captain glanced up at her as he prepared to do as she asked. Danny Beck. A pleasure doing business with you, Mr. Beck. And good timing, too. One of our local lords usually pays us a visit every now and then. Sometimes a few days in a row as well. Nico feigned surprise. You don't say? Might this lord have a name? The woman gave a predatory smile. Tegan Arante, second son of his lordship Ukem Arante. He smiled and leaned in conspiratorially. I don't suppose you could direct the lord our way by any chance? The hostess scoffed playfully. That would be giving you an unfair advantage over my other customers, wouldn't it? Oh, come now. We'll only be here for a short time, he complained teasingly. Even if I purchased an extra 3 days? Nico asked with a raised eyebrow. She leaned in closer. 7 more days and our alcohol package, and you have a deal. Sounds fair, the man said with a wink before paying for the extra charge. The woman was momentarily surprised at the lack of haggling, though she quickly recovered and nodded. It does, doesn't it? As the group departed, Myra spoke up. It sounds like you've done this before. Her gaze turned toward her captain with a curious, almost disturbed stare. Not quite, Nico chuckled. But I dare say we've all had our low points. Randomly, Kartok chimed in. I don't suppose I can be allowed to keep my helmet on, eh, Captain? I'm not sure I can get used to the interesting smell here. Permission granted. The captain laughed. It wasn't long before they had everything ready. All they had to do now was wait. Fortunately, their investment and patience seemed to be paying off when it was announced that Lord Tegan Arante had arrived that evening. A message soon arrived on Nico's communicator from the hostess. I cannot guarantee Lord Arante will be interested in your girls, but I will introduce you to him. The rest is up to you. Understood, was all the reply that was sent back. A few minutes later, there was a heavy knock on the door. It quickly opened with a hiss to reveal Lord Tegan Arante, two of his friends, alongside a couple of guards and the hostess. It was the hostess who entered first. She walked over to join Nico's side, and then both of them bowed respectfully. Please, my lord. Do come in. Meet the exotic beauty I spoke to you of. But first, allow me, please, to introduce you to Danny Beck. He is the man bringing you your entertainment this evening. The lord did not enter first. Instead, it was one of his guards who did so and took a quick look around to make sure there wasn't anything immediately apparent to be threatening. The hostess, Nico, and his crew all remained bowing as they waited. The guard's seasoned eyes looked each of the crew over carefully, though there was something subtle about his gaze that made the ladies especially feel it wasn't totally for professional reasons. It was too long, lingering for no apparent reason. Eventually, he walked out, giving Tegan a quick nod. Only then did Tegan and his two companions enter the room. All three men allowed a condescending grin to cover their faces as they basked in the respect being shown. Mr. Beck, a pleasure, I'm sure, Tegan said insincerely. The lady of this establishment tells me you have a beauty the likes of which I have never seen before. While intrigued, I wonder if she isn't exaggerating just a touch. Nico rises from his bow and grins. Then in that case, I am almost certain you will be pleasantly surprised, my lord. Have you ever had the opportunity to gaze upon a member of the Makulozea race? He asked, while gesturing with a graceful flourish of his hand for Ada to approach. Tegan frowned and looked to his companions for aid. When they both shrugged, he turned back toward the captain. Please forgive my apparent ignorance. A what? As Ada approached, her practiced, graceful movements on clear display, Nico grinned. She is from the feline race outside the principality. From the Tilgor Alliance territory specifically. They are prized for their graceful movements and other talents. To the best of my knowledge, none have ventured this far into our space before. A small gesture from Nico, and Ada allowed the robe covering her form to fall smoothly to the floor as she brought out a seductive smile to grace her features. If it pleases my lord, I sought to save her debut appearance for you and your distinguished friends. I assure you, you will be pleased by her captivating talents, Nico eventually said, after allowing a moment for them to stare before once more bowing low. Tegan and his companions couldn't help but gawk at the sight of the alien woman, instantly enraptured by her alluring appearance. They grinned again at each other as Nico's comment brought them out of their stupor. They squared their shoulders a little more, basking in the praise like peacocks. After a speedy glance between them, they all nodded. Clearing his throat, Tegan found his voice. Well, Mr. Beck, call me impressed. I do believe we will stay to enjoy the talents of the lovely lady here. Tegan turned to the hostess and smiled. And thank you for the suggestion. It's a welcome, unique surprise. The hostess bowed again. I live to serve, my lord. I hope you enjoy your evening, she said before excusing herself from the room, sealing the door behind her while the guards remained outside. Meanwhile, behind her practiced smile, Ada was barely holding it together. Never did she think she'd have to do this sort of work ever again. Still, seeing Myra coming by to offer drinks for the nobles kept her nerves steady as she moved toward the center of the room while the nobles took their seats. What drinks may I get you, my lords? Myra said, though not nearly as comfortably as Ada was making her role seem. Goodness, Mr. Beck. You have quite the eye for ladies, one of the lords commented as he reached out and smacked Myra on her backside without a second thought. Nico could see Myra tense up to nearly beyond the breaking point, so he stepped forward and offered a small bow. Thank you, my lord. But please, you should order your drinks. I promise you won't want to delay the performance any longer than you must, if you know what I mean, he said with a suggestive grin, even as he found the man touching Myra just as infuriating as her. Quite right, Tegan declared before they all ordered their first rounds of libations. Let the fetching woman do her job. There will be more time for that later. Myra's nostrils flared, but she managed to maintain her composure as she took their orders. She quickly disappeared to join Kartok in making the drinks, while Ada began to dance for the nobles. Ada stepped forward with feline grace, her bare feet silent against the polished floor. The soft hum of ambient music began to rise, slow, rhythmic, and pulsing like a heartbeat. Every eye in the room was on her, and she knew it. Her hips swayed in perfect time with the melody, each movement deliberate, like the coils of a serpent waking from slumber. With arms raised above her head, she let her fingers trace invisible patterns in the air, the motion drawing attention to the contours of her body, a living sculpture in motion. She circled slowly around the center of the room, her tail curling with each pivot, her emerald eyes smoldering as they locked briefly with each man in turn. When she dropped low to the floor, it was with the elegance of a predator stalking prey, seductive and dangerous all at once. As the beat quickened, so did her movements. Her hair whipped around with each spin, the lights catching on the sheen of her soft fur. She leaned back, arching her spine with a sigh that wasn't quite audible but somehow felt. Every step, every turn, was calculated not just to entice but to dominate attention. She wasn't merely performing, she was commanding. Meanwhile, on the other side of the room, the drinks had been prepared, though something a little extra had been added to the drinks of Tegan's friends. "There you go, Myra. Don't worry. We'll get the last laugh," Kartok offered in a whisper, trying to encourage his friend. While the first song eventually came to an end, Myra reappeared to the three men clapping eagerly. Ada dipped her head in a mock bow, though behind the sultry smile her stomach churned. "Here you are, my lords." "A little something to enhance the experience," Myra said, barely able to keep herself from dry heaving at the words she spoke. The men eagerly took their refreshments, toasted themselves loudly, and took large gulps of the potent drinks before demanding that the next song and dance begin. The lights in the room dimmed further, casting a velvety red glow around them like the slow descent of dusk. A soft hum of anticipation rippled through the air, murmurs quieting as the music shifted to a slower pace, heavy with rhythm, each beat deliberate and sultry. Ada stepped forward once more. Her movement was unhurried, fluid like liquid silk poured from a crystal glass. The shimmer of embedded crystals in her garment caught the low lighting, making her seem to sparkle with each sway of her hips. Her feline grace wasn't just noticeable, it was magnetic. Every motion, every glance from beneath her lashes seemed choreographed to tease and beckon. Nico took in a breath and quietly turned his gaze away. It somehow felt disrespectful to his crewmate to watch the dance. Though it was unseen by him, Myra gave a small smile when she saw the captain avert his eyes. Meanwhile, Ada twirled, letting the long slit of her dress fall open just enough to suggest, but not reveal. Her hands trailed along her sides, over her thighs, then over her shoulders as she let her head roll slowly, her long hair cascading in rhythm with the music. The lords leaned forward unconsciously, as if pulled by an invisible string. But Ada's eyes were on one target. She danced for Tegan, but only to keep him from noticing the shifting demeanor of his companions, as well as the fact that the other three people in her team were moving to the door. Each step brought her closer to the young noble sitting in the booth, a mixture of curiosity and hunger in his eyes. With the poise of a predator cloaked in elegance, she let her movements slow to match his breath, drawing him in. When she finally stopped, just short of touching distance, she turned and looked over her shoulder, her tail flicking behind her with a knowing twitch as it caressed Tegan's face while his companions quietly passed out to the right and left of him. It was at this point that she allowed the facade to drop as she lunged for Tegan. One hand gripped his throat tightly as he felt the claws in her other hand pressing down on his cheek just below his eye. "If you think about calling for your guards, you're a dead man, my lord," she practically spat. "I will rip your throat out quicker than you can squeal help." Tegan sat there, paralyzed with fear as his bladder released without warning, soiling his fancy clothes. Ada grinned and gave a quick nod to her captain. Nico opened the door, frantically calling for the Lord's protectors. "Guards! Something is wrong with Lord Tegan. Come quickly!" The two men, caught off guard by the sudden appearance, charged in without thinking, only to be pounced on by both Myra and Kartok while Nico closed the door once more and activated a jamming device hidden in his pocket. While the guards were quickly felled, Nico rushed over to Tegan and Ada. "That's enough!" He barked at Ada, causing her to snap her attention away from Tegan in surprise, accidentally scratching the man's face as she flinched. This drew a pained yelp from the Lord as he instinctively tried to cover his face. "You!" he growled, pointing to Myra. "Make sure he doesn't get any bright ideas about trying to escape." Turning to Ada, he gestures for her to move away. "And you, get over here!" Ada did what she was told, but was completely bewildered about what she had done wrong. With Tegan behind Nico, the captain winked at Ada. He then leaned in, pretending to whisper, but still said his next words just loud enough Tegan could hear. "You know damn well House Tegan didn't want any member of House Arante injured. What do you think you're doing, clawing his face?" It took Ada a few seconds to catch up with what was happening, but eventually the fire in her eyes dimmed and she lowered her head submissively. "I apologize, my lord. I didn't mean to displease you. I got carried away." "You'll be lucky if they don't whip you for this egregious mistake." He spat dramatically before turning back around to face Tegan. "Now, my lord, my apologies for the interruption of your evening, but I'm afraid your family has something that I need," Nico said in a much calmer tone. Tegan was still breathing heavily and clutching his face as he eyed the captain. He made no response and only now looked at his unconscious companions. "By Julius and all the princes. Are they dead?" Nico interjected. "No. At least not as long as you play nice and give me what I need. However, if you want to be difficult—" He paused for a moment and looked back at Ada. "I'll let her finish what she started despite my orders to keep you alive." The noble gulped nervously as his eyes moved back and forth from Ada to Nico. "So, are you ready to talk?" Nico asked in an increasingly pleasant tone. Slowly, Tegan nodded, the horror of his prospect still plain to see in his face. "Whatever you want. It's yours." Nico nodded and maintained his pleasant smile. "Good. All I need is the location of a commoner family, last name Staples, related to the recently elevated Baron Wyatt Staples." Tegan's eyes widened. But we just... How? Slowly, his surprise turned to a scowl. "Are you mad? This is neutral territory, you disrespectful barbarian. You can't..." His words were cut off by a smack across the face. "And now I've struck a lord in neutral territory. Did my hand fall from its wrist?" Nico growled condescendingly. "I have no patience for this lack of foresight on your part to see the inevitable. Are you going to give me those coordinates? Or do I let my associate show you how she likes to play before I find another one of your family members to give me what I want? And I assure you, there won't be enough of you left to fill a damn memorial urn." Tegan was now nursing a growing bruise on his other cheek as he stared at the group in disbelief. Yes, I will." "Wonderful!" Nico said happily as he produced a tablet for his captive to hand over the necessary details. "My apologies for the crude way of transferring the data. It's hard to use the network when it's being jammed." While the defeated noble took the tablet shoved into his hand and began uploading what was requested, Kartok forced the concoction made for the other nobles down the throats of the two guards, a fact that didn't escape the prisoner as he worked. "What is he doing?" Tegan asked nervously. Nico asked, confused for just a second before his eyes found what the young noble was talking about. "Oh, that? Just giving them something to help them sleep. Can't have you lot waking up prematurely now, can we?" he said cheerfully. Tegan again gulped nervously as he finished supplying his captor with what was requested before handing the tablet back. "Splendid!" Nico gushed as he grabbed the cup from his other friend and offered it to Tegan. "Now it's your turn, my lord. Pleasant dreams." The Arante noble took the cup hesitantly, looked at his companions, looked at Ada, and then at Nico before downing the contents in one quick go. "Well done, my lord," the captain laughed. "As I understand it, my associates make their drinks strong." The team then waited quietly till their unwilling helper fell unconscious. "All right, people. The hard part is done. Let's get back to the ship and make for this area here before anyone else can get in our way. The Tigans should have their hands full in a couple of hours now that the little Arante here thinks they sent us." He then stopped and turned to his feline companion. "Oh, and Ada, my apologies for yelling at you. I had to make it realistic." Ada scoffed, but let a grin slip onto her face anyway. "Yeah, well, next time you get to wear the slinky dress." Nico barked a laugh. "I'm not sure it would look as good on me," he finished with a wink. A shared laugh echoed in the room. To all Black Ship fans, You can get a week's early access to the Black Ship side stories now running for the foreseeable future on our Patreon site. The link is in the description.